All right, first of all, you need to understand that I'm not some crazy guy who thinks that women should abstain from pleasure or anything like that. But I think there is a big problem with more and more women starting to watch porn and not really realizing the consequences of this. So this video is directed towards a female audience. There's a few thousand women who watch my videos. I will not transition over. I'm just going to make a very quick disclaimer. My videos, my channel is for men, and it will always stay for men. That's something I feel very, very strongly about. Male spaces are needed more than ever. And I am always saddened when I see like some kind of male space, a male shelter for homelessness or whatever, being made sort of gender neutral. We need some places which are just for the support of men, and it's quite a rare instance to see that these days. That is what my channel is for. My channel is for men, but every now and then I have like a message that I want to send out to a female audience, because like a few thousand women watch my videos, and sometimes I have like some ideas for you. So I'm assuming you're a woman watching this, and you probably watch porn and you probably masturbate, and it's quite like a normal, freeing thing. You know, you've been quite encouraged for the last 5-10 years that this is like, you know, you should know your body and this is like a really good thing. Please don't fall for it. Don't fall for it, because we as men were told the same things. When we were children, when we were teenagers, we were told that like masturbation's normal, that it's good for you, that, you know, porn is actually like a positive thing to watch. We were told this, and I'm not sure if you've seen this, but there is like a whole huge community of men online now, and even in real life, who are now saying like we've become fucked because of porn and masturbation. It's become a very, very serious problem for tens, maybe hundreds of millions of men. For me personally, I'll completely tell you my story with total honesty. When I was 17 years old, that was like the moment where I decided, I vowed to stop being like a normal guy who jacks off and masturbates. This was around the time when there's a community, like a movement called NoFap, started popularizing online. And I'm going to just be totally honest, it's kind of vulgar. The reason why I decided at that age of 17 to like, you know, okay, I'm no longer jacking off, is because the last time that I properly jacked off, my dick didn't even get hard. It didn't even get hard. I was a 17-year-old, relatively healthy, and my penis wasn't even working. You are not educated or informed about the consequences of porn and masturbation, just like we as young men were never told the same things. It sounds awesome, like this sort of sexual revolution message, which is like, yeah, know your body, like, you know, you go girl. We were told the same things. And now, like, I'm assuming that you haven't really seen it as much as like I have or other men have. There is such, like, you can literally just type NoFap into Google, Reddit, into Instagram, into YouTube. Especially YouTube has like a big movement of it, and it's just a bunch of guys, millions of guys making videos literally saying like porn ruined my life. And so now it's a very normal thing for, as a guy, when I meet other guys, that we like, oh yeah, like, yeah, you still jack off? Nah, we don't jack off anymore, because we know it's bad for us. It's kind of gross. It's kind of like, kind of cringe, but it's kind of like the big to male thing to do. It's like you're literally just watching people have sex. And we've really, as men, really realized how bad it is. But I feel right now that my generation of women don't actually know about the consequences, and you're just filled with this message of like, yeah, it's really positive, you know your body, and like get all these toys. And it's a very normal thing when I speak to a girl that, yeah, she'll masturbate 3 times a week. Very, very normal. And we're not supposed to say anything bad about that, because you kind of come across as like a weird misogynist if you kind of say, oh yeah, maybe that's not actually a good thing. And I'm not saying it's not a good thing for me and my sort of personal pleasure that I may get out of you if you and I were going to have sex. I'm saying it for your own sake. I really don't think women watching porn is a good idea. I think right now there is no like popular woman who's really addressing NoFap for women. We as men, we have a lot of like male influencers who are saying like, yeah, porn addiction ruined my life. And so we're quite normalized with it now. Okay, we understand the message and we're all trying to like take a step back from porn. But women, you don't really have that. You're actually encouraged for it. So I'm going to explain to you right now, this may be the first time you've really heard a message like this. I'm going to explain to you what are the general symptoms, like the problems of porn and masturbation for men. And hopefully you might be able to like hopefully not, but like relate to the problems in a sort of female way. So the number one issue with porn and masturbation for men is it kind of desensitizes you to real life and also just sexual pleasure in general. So as a guy, when we're masturbating very, very frequently from the age of 13 till whatever age, and you're doing it pretty much every single day, 2-3 times a day, there's a physical desensitization that happens, and you kind of need to like build it up. You've probably found that your tolerance for the kind of porn that you watch and also for the way that you masturbate has increased quite significantly over time. Perhaps the first few times, like the first months, years of your sort of masturbation journey was simply like, I don't want to get vulgar, but like you didn't use any help, you didn't use any tools, you didn't use any toys. And perhaps over time you need more and more stimulation, where at first perhaps just like your fingers were just enough, and now it's like, okay, you've got these like the X1000 Dragon Slayer vibrator 3000 or some shit, and like that's like, oh yeah, it's kind of nice. What happens when you're supposed to connect with someone? So an issue that we have as men, and is if a guy has been like death gripping his dick, like jacking off so frequently for years and years, eventually when he does have sex with a girl, or he tries to have sex with a girl, he can't, because he can't even get hard. He has erectile dysfunction, because the grip that you have with your own hand is a lot harder and a lot firmer than what you would have when you're actually having sex. And this leads to almost a psychological desensitization, especially in terms of watching porn. So for guys, and I'm sure for you, the first kind of porn that we watched was extremely tame compared to the kinds of porn we were watching 5-10 years later. So I'll tell you, with my journey, with total honesty, the first time that I kind of watched like some kind of pornographic content was maybe 13-14 years old. I still remember, I was in class, we have DT, like design technology. It's kind of like, you know, woodworking class, and we were on the computers for some reason, and one of my friends told me to write this name of this woman in and write clean on Google. So write her name in clean. So I wrote it, and it's like some girl in like quite revealing clothing, but not like naked or anything. And I was like, oh wow, like, oh my god. Then I went home, I was like, wait, what if I write dirty next to it? So I wrote her name and then dirty, and then it was just like full, like just pictures, just like nudes. And I started like masturbating, because I heard from the boys in like the changing rooms that you could do this thing with with your penis. So I started masturbating with that, and you know, you slowly level it up. So the first kind of, I remember like video porn was like too much for me when I first started. It was actually kind of gross and sickly, and like there was a few times when, you know, I kind of stumbled upon it and it was too much. So I was literally just looking at like pictures, and eventually I moved on to like videos, but it was more tame things of just like women taking their clothes off. Then eventually you level it up. Do you know, when you compare this to the tolerance that builds up from a drug, it gets kind of scary. Because if you have taken some kind of recreational drugs, you know how it works. Like the first time you take any kind of drug, the high, the effect is magnificent. It's extremely powerful. But then every single time after that, your tolerance builds, the effect is lowered, and you need more of the substance, the drug, to get any level of like stimulation. And the exact same thing happens for porn, and I'm not alone when I say this. Like, it's happened to pretty much every guy I know, where we started with quite tame porn, and your tolerance builds up, and then over time you need more and more extreme versions of it. So I started with looking at a picture of a girl with the word clean next to it, so it's literally, she's just in like underwear, and I ended with looking at fucking montages, 5 tabs open at once. So just one Google Chrome tab wasn't enough. I had 5, and just a normal video wasn't enough. It was kind of like these montage edits, which would be like lined up to a beat and be like extremely stimulating. This was kind of fucked, right? This was like the peak of my like masturbation journey. So that was like, you can see the big difference literally from pictures to like literally hyper edited, stimulated montages with like 5 tabs open at once. That's like a build-up of tolerance. It's this psychological desensitization where when I was, you know, consuming this kind of content, if I tried to go back to this, it would do nothing to me. So perhaps you felt the same thing. Perhaps the first few times that you kind of experimented with your body, and that's probably a good thing, to experiment with your body, but it comes a point when like it's a frequent habit and there's negative consequences. And so when you first started, and if you do watch porn, the kind of porn that you watch, I can pretty much guarantee, like I can pretty much bet that it was a lot more tame than what you may watch right now. And so you just keep needing more and more and more and more stimulating. You get into like fetishes and, you know, like niches of porn, which are quite different to when you first started off, because you just need that extra kick. It really works exactly like how tolerance builds up in a drug, and that honestly should scare you. And then aligned with this sort of psychological desensitization is the effect that it has on your relationships, because when you've been consuming this content and getting off to this kind of content where you have the perfect, like a certain niche, a certain interest that's totally fulfilled, whatever kind of porn you look at, when you then eventually have partners in real life, they can't really compare. So as a man, imagine that I've seen hundreds, thousands of porn stars who have got like, you know, the perfect angles and the perfect shape and like any variety that I want, different hair color, everything. And so, you know, all of like the angles and the lighting and everything's perfect. And so when I eventually then have sex with a woman and I look at her body, it's kind of like, this sounds fucking horrible. It's kind of disappointing. I don't feel this way now because I am quite far in this journey of like nofap. But I remember when I first started having sex, it was quite like a letdown to see what like a real woman's body looked like. And how sad is that to say? How sad. So I'm like 20 years old, I'm like in university, I'm hooking up with girls. I remember I would always like be disappointed when I'd actually see women naked, because I'd be like, oh, it's not as good as it's supposed to be. I was seeing real women in front of me who I was about to connect with, and I was disappointed because of the sort of psychological desensitization of like the perfect variety and shapes and everything from what I was watching online. It's a very sad reality, and I really think my generation of women will go through this exact same thing, where you'll be able to see, let's say if you watch like sort of heterosexual porn and you watch like a man woman have sex on screen, eventually you're going to end up choosing the kind of guy like on screen who's like exactly a certain type. Maybe you're into like muscular guys and, you know, really fit, sexy kind of guys. He's got like a perfect six pack, and then eventually you get with like a normal guy and you're kind of let down by that. And then now, for the insecurity and the inferiority that it builds upon yourself when you look at the person of, you know, the porn actor who's the same sex as you. So as guys, this is a huge one for guys. As guys, we watch porn, and it's like a stereotypical thing. You must know this by now as well, that we'll watch porn and the male porn star has a massive dick. We grow up, we're watching this at age 15, barely even hit puberty yet. We're like 2.5 inches erection, like 3-inch erection or some shit at this point at age 15. And here this guy is with a fucking cucumber looking motherfucker. And, you know, I can look back and laugh now because it's like, I feel totally, like, this is actually a rare thing for a guy to say. I am totally like comfortable, confident, happy with everything like about me sexually. But for a long time, I had a very, very big insecurity with the size of my penis. Because when you're seeing content of such an intimate part of people, you can't help but compare. You simply can't help it. It's not like you're sat there watching it, coaching yourself, saying like, yep, don't compare yourself to anyone else. Just compare yourself to who you were yesterday, 1% better. Bro, you're not doing that. You're literally watching, like for you, you'd be watching, if you are watching some kind of like heterosexual male-female porn, you can't help but like look at the girl and be like, oh yeah, she's more attractive than me. I wish my stomach looked like tight like that. I wish my breast, the shape of me. Oh, so that's how I'm supposed to act and sound. That's how I'm supposed to look. Those are the positions that I'm supposed to get into. That's how I'm supposed to perform. This is probably the biggest one for men, which really, really fucks us up. The physical part of like desensitization that can lead to erectile dysfunction is huge. But I really think the biggest one is simply just seeing the unrealistic standards of like male porn stars, seeing like massive dicks, and like the way that they fuck as well is quite... I think everyone who's watched a lot of porn but then also ended up having quite frequent sex with like partners kind of knows that porn, the kind of sex they have is like very... you don't really... it's hard to explain, but yeah. That's a big one for guys, just seeing the male porn star and then just feeling so insecure about our own penis size. It really, like, it's such a joke these days, you know, it's like, oh yeah, he's got a small, you know, it's such a joke, but you don't even realize, like, it really fucks people up in the head. It really does. It did for me. For a long time, it was like a big thought. Imagine that. It's like a consistent, like, big thought in my mind. I'm just going about my normal day, shopping. Oh yeah, I've got a small dick. I'm speaking to a girl, like, oh, like, if I eventually have sex with her, like, what would I do? Because I've got a small dick. And when I look back now at, you know, the points when I was thinking this, I didn't. That, like, the sort of average real size for penises is a lot smaller than what you see in this sort of like porn star realm. And I'm certain that for women watching porn, it's the same thing with you. You're comparing yourself to the woman in the porn scene, and you're seeing like fake breasts, BBLs, like Brazilian bum lifts, and you can't help but compare yourself to that. And so now you're getting this quite traumatic, like, inferiority complex inside of you. One of the things that I'm quite a big advocate for in terms of being anti-porn, anti-masturbation, this is kind of an unsexy answer, which a lot of people don't really talk about, is simply, I'm a quite practical guy, right? Simply just the time spent. So you don't actually realize how much time and sort of like mental load you put into watching porn and masturbating. At least for me, if I had to guess, like, per week, couple of hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, when I used to, like, you know, be a full-on like wanker when I was 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Not 18 actually, about 18 was when I started like pushing off it. I remember that actually. But about 17 years old was like, I mean, I stopped kind of young when you really think about it. I started masturbating age 13 and stopped. Not stopped, you know, I've never done it before, but like stopped mostly by age 17. And since then, I could probably count it of the times that maybe not, because yeah, there was like, I started again at like age 21, 22 when I was like down bad, mental health problems and everything. And then in the last year, it's literally been like so minimal, I could count it on one hand, which is so good to say. It's a very sad reality, honestly. Like, porn addiction is such a big problem for men, and I honestly think it is for women. I just think right now it's like an unspoken about problem, and I'm very interested. Like, this video's aimed at women, so I'd even be interested to see if there's going to be like a bunch of comments of women saying like, oh shit, like, you know, I feel those symptoms too, and I've realized, and I've taken a step back from porn because I realize it's not good for me. Because right now it's totally just encouraged. It's like you're brainwashed and conditioned to be told like, yeah, it's a really good thing, it's a really good thing. And when I started this video, I said, like, we as men, we were told that. From a young age, we were literally told it was absolutely normal, it's fine, just go to your room and just do it. It reduces your risk of it reduces your risk for prostate cancer. Bro, I'm like 14 years old. What the fuck are you talking about prostate cancer for? What are you on about? We were told these lies, honestly, and the majority of men, we just believed them because it was just normal. And now it's normal for women. And I just don't want like my generation of women to go through the same thing that my generation of men went through, because it has been such a big struggle for us. It has been like almost a rite. Yeah, it is. It's a rite of passage for men to take a step back from porn and masturbation. All of this is quite, you know, the things I've said, it's quite personal issues, and I am a guy who focuses on the self a lot more. But I do understand that there are societal and sort of like corporate issues with this as well. The porn industry is like, you'd expect it obviously, but it's like an extremely dark, manipulative, fucked up industry. There was a time when I remember I made a video about this actually, where I had never considered it in that sense. You know, it was always about issues of like myself and, you know, like an individual person. And I always, for some reason, had some kind of like resentment and hatred towards like the female actresses who do porn, and, you know, they make lots of money and stuff. Until one day I just kind of visualized like a porn scene, especially I visualized like a photo shoot that would happen with that, remember that model I told you about, who I wrote her name, I'm not going to say her name just because like I don't want like some guy watching this and be like, oh, I'm going to search in her name and dirty too, and he starts jacking off or something. But I remember, okay, so I searched in her name, I wrote clean at the end, and then I wrote dirty at the end, and the environment that she was in was like somewhat like cafe or some shit, and she's like there with like cream over her titties or something. And, you know, like, I didn't think anything of it for most of my life. And then there was this one random point where I just kind of visualized that environment. And I just saw it so different. I was like, that's a real woman who's like getting really intimate, taking her clothes off and stuff. And I guarantee that that cameraman's like a bit too touchy. That she's doing this and, you know, she's, for some reason, she's always felt like the enemy, even though I'm like there jacking off to it. And then I just think like, fuck, like, she probably had rent due and that she got paid like $100 for this. And what percentage of like the directors or cameramen or any kind of staff that are the male staff that are there, or even female staff that are there, are just going to be a bit too touchy and pushy? Honestly, maybe 10%, probably like a high number. And then I thought about how big the porn industry is, and I kind of zoomed out. I did this like mental visualization practice. So I saw, you know, this cafe with, she's got a cream over her titties, and I zoomed out and I just started to see a bunch of these like porn shoots all around the world, the country. And just how many times like these like vulnerable people, even for the male porn stars who were there, are just kind of groped, coerced, forced. And it gave me the ick. It just fully, like, it pissed me off, and it kind of made me disappointed in myself. I shouldn't feel bad about myself, but for some reason, yeah, like, I've always had, like, quite a resentment. It's the way that porn just makes it. Like, a lot of guys are like this, and we don't want to be. But a lot of guys have this kind of weird, uncalled for resentments towards women, and especially, like, you know, sex actresses and sex workers. And we can't really explain why. Like, I couldn't, do you know, I'm watching the scene, I'm masturbating to it, but I don't like her for some reason. I think she's the enemy for some reason. And once I did this practice, maybe it was like a year ago or something, where, you know, I visualized the scene and I thought like, oh fuck, like, she's actually like a victim of this as much as I am. Like, I've got, you know, an addiction that's fucked up years of my life. But here she is, like some vulnerable woman who needed $200. The whole scene's fucking dark. Supporting these companies, the porn websites. There's a lot better things we can do with our time. And yeah, I don't know if this video is going to be helpful. I don't know if there was like real value in this. But if you are a woman watching this, it's just the message I wanted to send out today, that I don't think it's as like good for you as people are acting like. It's very easy to see me. You know, there could be some people who are watching this and seeing me as like, oh yeah, he hates women. He doesn't want women to be like. So if you speak like this, it's like I can come across as a guy who's saying like, oh yeah, like I hate women, and like you can probably tell, like, if you're watching this level-headedly, you can probably tell I don't. But it's like this new narrative to push women to be like ultra sexual, and perhaps I'll make a video on like, this is just porn, but like with casual sex and hooking up. There's this weird new narrative to push women to be like ultra sexual, and it's under this guise, like this disguise of like telling women like it's good for them. But it's not really. It's really not. We as men were told the same thing, that porn is good for us, that casual sex, like hooking up with girls is sick, bro. And then when we went through it, we kind of realized like, oh yeah, well, an emotional connection and actually experiencing love is way better. And now I'm seeing like women go through the same thing, maybe just 20 years back, or whoever, like however many years back, of like, yeah, porn's good for you. Yeah, like, you go girl, go fuck around girl, like it'll be really good for you. And then you just see the trauma that girls go through when they've like been hooking up and gotten with guys that they shouldn't. Am I a misogynist for saying this? Is that really what misogyny is these days? What you see before you is not like a YouTube video you've probably seen before. And if you've had a look at my channel, or if you are going to have a look, you'll see that this is not a normal channel. We are at war. I realized recently, there's always been that saying that like our generation has not really had like a real war, especially if you're in the West. Obviously, if you're in different countries, maybe not, but we've not had like a great war that most other generations have had. And I realized very, very recently that that's actually not true. We are fighting a war that we didn't even realize was going on. We're fighting a war against these evil, addictive companies, porn, social media. These companies that have totally dominated the world and taken away our loved ones. Everyone we love is just glued to their phone like this. You try and speak to your parents, just fucking glued to their phone like this. You try and speak to your friend, glued to their phone like this. You try and connect with someone and to get into a good relationship with them, well, they've been looking at people who are more attractive than you on social media and porn, and now their perception of you is lowered. There's been a war going on and we didn't even realize we were fighting. The war is against these evil companies, social media and porn. What you see before you is not a YouTube channel. This is a revolution of young men. Perhaps we'll invite young, like this, you know, my focus through all of this, the work that I've done here has always been directed just towards young men. And I will keep it that way. I will, like, I don't know if this offends someone or not, but like, I am a very big believer of like male spaces. And I've always said, okay, this is young men revolting against the system. But you know what I'm realizing recently? Young women are as fucked as we are. Our mental health as young men is fucked because of social media, porn, video games. Your mental health as a young woman is fucked because of social media, porn, video games. Here we are, all of us are fucked. All of us are lonely. All of us have got mental illness. For what? What do we trade our mental health for? Stimulation. Memes. We're pissed off. And we are going to war against these evil companies. Click this video to learn more right now. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.